The town land of Drummahan, plain or ridge of the sapling or twig. The road that passes by the Shanaghan Homestead was funded and built by a wealthy landowner named John Vaughan during the severe and less reported famine of the 1740s. George, born in 1693, was the son of Sir John Vaughan, who was involved in building the walls of Derry and the castle and the town of Buncrana. In 1740, George purchased Castle Hassett on an estate of initially 20,000 acres in County Fermanagh. From his home in Buncrana, he negotiated with the Hamiltons of Barnescourt to build a road link from his estate at Tubredmoor Cache to Barnescourt Estate in County Tyrone. The project began with the 7 Mile Straight and continued through Scrahy, past Drummahan and on towards Clare, Curlish and Barnescourt. This road provided work for George Vaughan's Fermanagh tenants during the terrible famine that was caused by a succession of extremely cold and wet harvest times. The famine claimed the lives of up to 2 million people. We are now in the townland of Edenray, where the old Shanaghans were living and were tenants on 2 small farms. Patrick and Elizabeth moved there around 1907. Their home is clearly visible, as is the barn where the second homestead was situated. Sometime in the 1920s, Patrick and Elizabeth, now in their mid-60s, moved to Achnahu, which is just about a mile across the burn. The footstick is still visible, and they survived until their ripe old age for that time. There is lots of photographic evidence of them living in a low thatched home with a large barn to the left and a big stone wall in front of the home. This footage is eagerly awaited by the 7 grandchildren of Willie John Shanaghan, who left Edenray around 1925, married Mary O'Donnell from Ballymungan, and spent their lives in San Francisco and later Sacramento, where a generation of Shanaghans still live. This project has renewed contact with the second cousins of the Shanaghan family that they barely knew existed.
We're here today in the townland of Drummahan at Shanaghan Homestead, and Mary Gallagher is with us here. Mary's going to tell us a bit about the Shanaghan family and her relationship with them. Mary.
Well, even my great-grandmother lived here, great-grandfather was born here, and my grandmother and all the family were born here except for one who was born in Edenray.
How many was in the family, Mary?
10 or perhaps 11. To my knowledge.
And were they all born in this house?
And there was just one born when they moved to Edenray in the early 1900s. One was born there, and that was Lizzie, the youngest. She was born in 1910, I think.
Right.
Philip Shanaghan was also, no, he was born here, and then around that time they must have moved.
So what you're saying is there've been 9 of a family in this house here?
And the mother and father. And now it doesn't look...
It was just probably a two-roomed house, wasn't it?
Yeah. I first heard of Drummahan, which is the town land, from my granny when I was very young. She used to visit a cousin of hers, Mary Ann Haggerty. That was up near the Crooked Bridge on the left-hand side. I can still see the house, even though the house is gone. Mm-hmm. And she used to refer to Drummahan, this is where home, this is where she was born. And we didn't question it, being children, you didn't question it. But in later years I sort of thought, I wonder where did they come from, and I wonder if they always lived there. And I never made my way here until about a month ago. But I've been very interested in the Shanaghan connection for a long time. I've done a lot of research.
Right.
And I remember asking her, did they always live in Drummahan? And she said, no, we came from away down south somewhere.
Right.
And somewhere in my memory, I can remember mentioning Roscommon. So I've been sort of trying to research further south and find names and look at name patterns and so on to see, can I find where the Shanahans came
That's
from.
going to take a bit of time, Mary.
It's taken me a long time.
Maybe we could make our way into the house just to see what it's like. If
We look inside.
Yeah.
But other people have lived here since the Shanahans left, obviously.
The Rodden family, I think, was the last ones to live here, weren't they?
They left, the Shannahans left here, I think, around 1904, 1905, 1906. We moved to Aidenrea and then to Achnahu. But I know that Ennisons lived here for a long time. And then I know the Roddens lived here.
Yeah.
And Mickey Rodden, I think, was the last person
one,
here.
Yeah. And we'll go inside and have a look around to see.
Okay. My goodness. Oh! Tiny, tiny, tiny house.
Can you imagine 11 people living in this size of a house?
Look at them.
And the table with the cutlery still there.
The oilcloth.
Teapot.
This is oilcloth.
There's the teapot still sitting.
Tea bags, I think, tea leaves, frosted. Cutlery. Bone handled cutlery.
There you are.
That's a bread knife. Not too sharp.
Really unusual to find it like
So this
that.
must be the oh, look at the cabinet. That was called a kitchen cabinet.
That's right.
Look at the cups.
Cups and all are still in her.
Those would be Mickey Roddens, I'm sure.
Yeah, probably would have been.
Painted brown.
That would have been the done thing then, wouldn't it?
There's no sink. There's no sink or there's no cooker in here. Wallpaper.
Do you want to go on?
Yes. And the tiny window. I noticed the tiny windows the first time I came at the back of the house. It just so little light.
Apparently that's what the rich were based on, was the size of the windows, the amount of light that came in, so that's what meant there were smaller windows in the houses.
Yeah, that might be in Tithe of Blotmans in 1823. There was something about that. And I know a lot of them tried to escape it.
Aye.
So you had had 1, 2, 3, 4 windows just.
Aye.
And the sun shining in the front. Isn't that nice?
That's right. That's the sun would have been shining in the front window all the time. The old cooker.
Old Rayburn Royal cooker. Cabinet in the corner. Look at the wallpaper. The brick effect. That's 70s. Wonder was Mickey living here in the 70s.
It must have been. I came here around that
That's
time.
plastered. Look, so there'd been a hearth fire there.
There probably would have been a crane and that on there at the start.
Right.
Now that somebody modified it and put a cooker in.
Maybe the Dennisons, because they were here apparently for a long time before the Roddens.
Right.
And they now live up further up Scraggy. Look at the width of the wall.
This is it. That's the stone walls again.
Yeah.
That what?
There's another room as well.
There's another room down here.
There wouldn't have been cement floors. There wouldn't have probably been cement floors that were back in the 1800s.
It probably could have been a clay floor to start with. And then
Someone
later
just
on,
look, everything. Look at the bed. All made.
The furniture's all here as he left on the last day, just. The gas lights as well.
And the table, all gas lights. And it's got a stippled ceiling.
It has.
I wonder it was done in later years as well.
That's probably someone was done.
Sacred Heart picture.
That's Sacred Heart picture still.
Fireplace. This was the good room.
That's would have been it.
Wee fireplace. Look at the clothes hanging in the wardrobe.
The suits clothes are still in the wardrobe.
Hold it. Have a look at the other wardrobe, Eamon.
There seems to be clothes in it as well.
Maybe it was the good clothes. Look
That's probably where it was.
The suit with
the plastic on the top of it yet.
2 wardrobes. Certainly a lot of clothes.
There's a lot of clothes about, that's right.
But then no one threw anything out in those days.
No.
When you bought a suit of clothes, you just
kept it.
Forever. Then you bought another one.
That's right. There wouldn't have been that much money about in those days. So there wasn't.
Statue.
The statues and all are left here just as they were.
There would have been no gas lights. There'd been, what would they have in 1800s? Candles?
Probably. Candles. We've been very lucky to have an oil lamp at that stage, wouldn't
Oil lamps, maybe.
Oil lamps.
Well, 1860, I found Francis Shanaghan living here in the Griffiths valuation. Possibly there was a family, but Griffiths just gave us the name of the householder.
There's no mention of how many people were in the house.
Very tiny bit of land and a house. That's what it gave, a very tiny bit of land. There were also 3 other houses, Moss's and I think it was Michaelin's and forget the third. There were 3 other houses, 4 houses here altogether.
On the stretch of road here?
Yeah, shown on this stretch of road.
You were saying earlier on, Mary, this stretch of road actually is part of the 7 Mile Street.
Yep, as far as I can find from any research I've done, that was another thing I wondered about. Driving up the Scrahy Road, you looked across and you saw the remains of houses, and you sort of thought, well, they're way, way, way in. But it turned out then when I came the first day, I thought, well, there's a road behind the house. So it stood to reason. There were houses along and there was a road passing them or behind them. And when I tried to find out about it, Danny Gormley helped me with this, and it's also Willie McHugh as well knows a bit about this. He said that it was a man, George Vaughan, in 1740, time of the famine, that had initiated the building of that road from Tubbard to Barnescourt, and it passes here. So the 7 Mile Street is possibly part of it.
Part of it. When you mentioned now, when you think about it, when you're travelling up the Scrahy Road, the houses are all on the left-hand side. There's very few houses. There's only a couple of houses on the right-hand side.
Right. This road, present Scrahy Road, I think was built at the time of the last famine, 1845, 1850. I suppose to give employment again, the same as 100 years earlier when the Vaughans decided to give some employment to the people.
That's very interesting to know that it's part of the 7 Mile Street.
And you can actually see it if you're coming down past Scrahy Quarry and you look into the right, you can see the track of the road.
Right.
And then it follows right behind these houses.
Follows right down to here. Well then, when the Shanaghans left here, they moved to Edinburgh, didn't they? That's
right.
And then later they moved
to Achnahoe. There were the 9 of the family here and the mother and father. In 1903, I think it was the Land Purchase Act was initiated by the Conservative government to let the landlords, move elsewhere if they felt like it, to let the tenants buy their land. So at that point they must have moved to Edinburgh. But there's a story behind Edinburgh as well, because in 1860 Francis Shanaghan was here, and there were 2 more Shanaghans and 2 houses in Edinburgh.
Right.
And Sissy Kerrigan would tell me that they were the old Shanaghans. They always called them the old Shanaghans. And I found 4 of these old Shanaghans. Right. Born 1823, 1850, around that, 1830, died early 1900s.
So they moved on then to Achnahoe.
And eventually they moved to Achnahoe from Edinburgh.
Very good.
But Edinburgh and Achnahoe are just side by side almost.
There's actually a stepping stone across, or
That's
a
right.
footstick across there on
on
the bourne. So the Shanaghans moved into Achnahoe. We're going down there now to talk to 2 of the Shanaghan girls. What's their names, Mary?
Anna and Mary.
Right.
And there was Patrick as well.
So Anna and Mary and Patrick, they were all born in Achnahoe.
They were. And the Shanaghans lived in Achnahoe after they left Edinburgh, because there's quite a lot of photographs taken outside the old house. It was an old house with a thatched roof. It looked like a very good house, in fact. And there's Philip and there's Patrick, a trap outside, and Sarah, I think it is. There's also a picture of the mother and father, Patrick and Elizabeth, outside.
Right.
So they obviously all had lived in Achnahoe for a while. And my granny would have talked a good bit about Achnahoe, but I never actually knew when they went to Achnahoe.
But they must have been fairly well off to have a horse and trap. There wouldn't have been that. Well, horse and trap wouldn't have been at every house, like in.
Well, Sissy Kerrigan would describe her grandfather, my great grandfather, as he was a councillor with the Rural District Council, and he must have educated himself. And my mummy used to say about her father going to the horse stable in Nachyarn after the 12 o'clock mass, and Patrick Shanaghan would have been meeting people there and filling in forms and giving them advice.
There you are.
It must have been maybe the 1930s or thereabouts. He died in 1944, as did Elizabeth Shanaghan. The 2 of them died around the same time, early 40s. And he had a trap for a Sunday and apparently had another one for weekdays.
So they must have been well at themselves at that stage.
His son Patrick, who did very, very well. And he obviously moved away, and he seemed to buy property and do well for himself. And there were quite a lot of photographs, old photographs, which are unusual. Right. So I would presume Patrick was the one that had the camera. There's some very good photographs.
Possibly, yeah. Well, maybe we'll make our way down now to Achnahoe and talk to these 2 girls. We're here in the townland of Achnahoe, in the home of the late Philip Shanaghan. And I've with us here 2 daughters of us, Mary and Anna. And we've just been up to the Shanaghan home in Drummahan there. Have either of you ever been up there at that house?
Well, funny enough, I was up there probably only about 4 or 5 years ago, but all through our lives when we were younger and we'd have been travelling up with Mummy and Daddy in the car, we heading to Badorn or wherever, they'd have been pointing out that that's where Daddy was born. But we never, at that time there would have been somebody living in it, and I think Daddy moved from there when he was quite young, so we never actually ever went over to it. But I was coming down the road one day and I was looking across with my husband Martin, and we could hardly see it, and I wondered if the house had disappeared. And I thought, you know what, I think we'll just drive in and go and see the house. So we stopped and went in, and there was still a house there, but the trees had started growing up around it. So we just, first time I was ever there, you know, so I was amazed just to have a look at it and see. And it was, I suppose the thing was, we never really knew where they'd come from before that, you know.
Ruddens was the last family that lived there, weren't they?
As far as I know, now I wouldn't have known the Robbins.
I remember the Mickey man been in the pub when he got left home with us. We always left him off in Barney Moss's street, you know.
Right.
But we never realised he had as long a walk to get him home to the day. Went in there. And you had an uncle then went to America, a good uncle, and he never was here to begin. Did your father ever talk about him?
Frank, yeah. Well, we have a nice picture of Frank. Frank was quite close in age to Daddy, and Daddy would have been very fond of him. He always spoke, you know, I think he was sort of heartbroken that he left and never come back, but he told us that before he left that Frank gave his bicycle to Daddy.
Right.
So this was his parting gift to him, yeah. But very sad, I mean.
It was. I suppose at that time to have a bicycle was something very unusual.
Well,
it
it meant a lot to Daddy anyway, you know. But
that did a way of travelling.
yeah.
In contrast with his brother, Willie John, you see, I suppose that made it was a big contrast because they knew where Willie John was and they had photographs and letters from him, but there was just
I had
nothing.
been correspondence with the Willie John man.
Willie John, yeah, there was, we'd have been shown photographs that had come in. That was whenever we were younger though, and then those sort of, I presume then when Willie John got older and maybe whenever he passed away then, unfortunately the correspondence really stopped at that stage too, you know, so.
That's usually what happens, you'll find.
That's the way things are when they move on, different generations, you know.
So there was another house in Eden Ray as well where your father would have lived or been about.
Well, we never.
You never knew much of
No,
that?
only from looking at census records since.
Yes.
There would have been 2 addresses that sort of, I was surprised of sort of like I think it was A and B maybe they were known on the census. And then like Mary McSorley, her mother was the oldest daughter, so she was in that looking after the older Shanaghans, I presume.
Right. Yeah.
And then eventually the rest of the Shanaghans moved down to the house beside that, so they're both together. But Daddy didn't really talk about,
Not really, no.
other than music sessions and stuff
Well,
in
your
the barn,
Right.
as he
Your
called it.
father played the fiddle, didn't he?
Yeah,
I heard that.
He loved the fiddle.
Loved the fiddle. Well, is there any of your family or any of you played any instrument?
Unfortunately, I would love to say some of my family could play the fiddle or myself, but no,
Well,
I've passed it on to Alice's
it's
family.
funny. I thought to be able to play the fiddle would be amazing. So one time when we were down south in for Killarney, my mother, I had taken her on holiday and she bought me a fiddle, and I thought, right, so I persuaded my son to go along to lessons with me.
Right.
And of course my son took off with it, and I was still in the starting point, you know. So Connor plays fiddle now. It's one of his, he plays other instruments, but he loves the fiddle, so he plays Daddy's fiddle.
Very good.
So
He plays it very well.
yeah.
But you'll often find that in families, there's a generation would miss out
yeah,
that doesn't, and then
Yeah, we're that.
We're the generation that missed out on the musical
that's what
talent.
must have happened here as well.
Is that right? But no, it's lovely. Mummy was very proud now that Connor has taken so well to the fiddle and plays it and enjoys it so much, you know.
That's
So
great.
it was probably how Mummy and Daddy probably met up.
Right.
I would imagine because the Drummohan and Daddy, when they moved down to Aidenray, by the road it's quite a long way around from Aidenray to where Mummy's home place is, but there is a wee shortcut across the burn. Yep. Very
That's right.
useful thing to have in those days, you know. And
Well, most people were travelling my foot then, so
Absolutely,
the
yeah,
shortest.
definitely. So
I always took the shortest way.
yeah, so I would say there was regular comings and goings up down there, and I know Mummy would have often talked about their house, so they had music sessions and ceilidhs and whatever, and
that would have been likely enough place for somebody to go that would play a fiddle.
absolutely, you know, but I suppose it was the only entertainment in those days. And I know in Mummy's house they had a kitchen, and I remember talking about moving the table over to the corner, and the musicians, they had been up on the table playing there to leave more room for everybody else to dance. But the music and dancing, ceilidh and probably playing cards would have been the other entertainment. So, and neighbours would have come all in from around to do all those things.
That's something that we have just discovered now, doing this project, going around from one place to another and talking to people. Cards seem to be the end thing then.
Yeah,
25.
25. Mummy taught all our children how to play 25, and then they would still play it the all time, you know. It was good
I suppose
entertainment.
it's a skill that's beginning to be lost as well with televisions and that now. People wouldn't have the same interest in
It is, and it's an awful shame because there's a lot of interaction, and you know, you do meet a lot of people, you know, you get to know people well, and it's good entertainment, you know.
until the odd argument.
Aye, all aye.
25 must be local to here, because I know in Derry, where we are, it would be 45.
That's right, aye.
So it's
45
sort
in
of,
the Dublin as well.
That's all 25 is chatted about.
Yeah, that's right.
So that, but again, then there was no TVs, as you say.
No.
Like there was no electricity came to this house whenever Daddy's family moved down. Like the footprint was the same size as it is today, but it wasn't now. It wasn't obviously the same. It was would have been a thatch.
So that's roof, yeah.
There's photographs here
Thatch
showing
and
it.
slate.
There was a mixture. There was the lower good part of it was thatch. It was 1.5 story, and then there was the upper end was a 2-story extension that had been put on at some time.
Was that a slate roof?
It had a slate roof, you know, so it was a.
Well.
There's there are pictures of it,
Yeah.
and then around the time Patrick or myself were born, then as a good friend of ours, John, was telling us that he remembered that my mum, they were taking the thatch off and they were putting on the tin roof.
Right.
And then apparently my mum and a couple of the children, whether I was born or not, I'm not sure, but we went up to Aidenrafe again.
They went back up.
They went there to stay until the work was done.
Your father probably
Daddy-
stayed here, did he?
Apparently he stayed on, yeah.
No,
Up well,
no.
he had the farm to run and
there would have
things
been
to do,
animals
so
and stuff.
And Ben working, I suppose.
keeping an eye on everything in the house, making sure it was done properly, you know. So
That's right. That's the way it had been probably done.
and then the more recent renovation work was done in the 1980s then, so
That's grand. Hey, thanks very much for inviting us into your home and talking to us and filling us in and all that information. It's great to have it. Thank you very much.
No problem,
Thank
you're
you.
more than
Thank
welcome.
you, yeah.